What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the start of the NFL season and another episode of In the Pocket Podcast. I am your host, SOU to the P, here with my brother, Mike. Bro, the moment we've been waiting on.
Man, today was a hell of a day. It was a phenomenal day. We got a good kickoff to the season with the first game on Thursday, so it's only up, man.
Yeah, bro. Let's talk about that real quick. Let's talk about Thursday night football, Eagles versus the Cowboys. Some things that I didn't expect. I couldn't figure out, was Philadelphia's defense that bad, or was Cowboys offense that good? I mean, I know it's week one. We don't want to make any sweeping declarations, but I think it's safe to say that the Eagles did not look like the powerhouse that I thought that they were going to come out and be. And the Cowboys didn't lay down and die like I had hoped they would.
Yeah, I thought the Cowboys would not play well. We both kind of talked about that. We were wrong. They actually played relatively well. I think a big reason that was is the Eagles' best defensive player getting kicked out of the game before the game really started, right? Carter, so Jalen Carter. In my opinion, that's the best player on defense. The Cowboys running game has been struggling for years, and I was hoping for a resurgence from Javonte Williams, a former Denver Bronco. He had it, but it's a little bit easier when you're missing a 6'6", 315-pound D tackle that really controls that line of scrimmage. And they escaped that game like a championship team normally would do, but I think that was a big letdown for them for sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, when Jalen Hurts is the most productive player in the game and he's doing it on the ground with his legs, it's not something that you ever want your quarterback to do. It's a nice, it's one of those features. It's nice to have, but it's not how you want that game to go. Saquon had some flashes there of brilliance, and he'll only get better as the season continues on. But when it comes to like the Eagles passing game, bro, like AJ Brown was invisible. Like, I don't know if he got the memo that this was actual real deal football, because it felt like he was on the sidelines reading a book all night.
Yeah, it's I don't know what it was. The passing game for the Eagles didn't look like it was in sync at all, and that's not what you expect from that team. But I think they get that corrected. AJ Brown absolutely had a terrible game. Devontae Smith wasn't as explosive as he could be, but I think the big reason that was is because AJ Brown wasn't making the plays he normally does. That kind of draws more of that coverage. But Saquon is a consistent playmaker. He was making plays. They still have Jalen Hurts. They still have the best offensive line in the NFL. It looks like so. They definitely eke that game out, and I'll definitely give a shout out to the Cowboys, man. Like, I don't love to do that, but we're not biased over here, right? Like, we were picking them to get blown out by like 10 points or 10 points plus. They hung in that game. I love seeing Javonte Williams get those 2 touchdowns. Their offensive line was one of my biggest worries, and their offensive line held up relatively well against a top 5 defensive line in the NFL. So if they can get a little bit of continuity there, they might actually surprise people like me and you. And we'll kind of see what that season looks like for them.
Yeah, man. Escaped is the right word when you talk about Philadelphia getting out of this game. Now, obviously, right, a win is a win. At the end of the season, especially if you're holding up the trophy, nobody talks about how you escaped. And even if they did, it doesn't really change what the fact of the matter is. But I think the thing that I was the most shocked about wasn't even really how Philly showed up, but it was about all the things that Dallas did. Like you said, we had talked all offseason about this Dallas offensive line and, their lack of talent, it seems, on the line. But even minus Jalen Carter, the Philadelphia defensive front is probably one of the top defensive fronts in the league.
Absolutely.
And I would say they handled that rush relatively easy. I would go so far as to say that Philadelphia really didn't get a whole lot of pressure on Dak Prescott all night. He looked comfortable, made good decisions, and I mean, really looked like a competent quarterback. I had made a comment about Dak racking up a lot of stuff in garbage time, but it was really cool to see him get out there and play meaningful football, when the minutes actually mattered and the game wasn't yet over. Seeing Javonte Williams run was fantastic. Defensively, man, I got to tell you, like, I was really, really impressed with what they were doing defensively, containing that. And I mean, Jalen Hurts is the fact that he can kill you with his legs it really isn't fair. It's like trying to play against Lamar Jackson, right? Like you got to decide how you want him to kill you. And it just was him getting it done all day on the ground. CD Lamb looked great early, but man, I don't know what happened to his hands in the second half. It's like his hands got banished to the shadow realm.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. A couple things we'll touch on, but like Eagles had no sacks. I was just looking to double check I wasn't tripping, and the Cowboys only had one, and that was with their rookie, which is phenomenal. I guess a phenomenal start, but both those lines held up well. CD had a great game. I mean, realistically, Dak he had all of Dak's yards uh, minus 77. Right, he had all the yards for that team. Dak only had 188 yards passing, and it was looking like CD had 110 of that, right? So, but with that being said, he did have four drops. Two of them were crucial
Big time.
drops, big time drops. I could have got them in scoring range, touchdown. That one that he did drop towards the end, that looked like it could have been a runaway touchdown if he would have pulled that in. He was a little bit ahead of the defense. He got behind him, but um, I mean, I think if I was a Cowboys fan, which I would uh, never be that. But if I was a Cowboys fan looking at that game, I would say, hey, we didn't come out on top on that game as an away game, right? Because that was banner night for the Eagles. They got
Mm-hmm.
to come to Jerry World, and we'll be a little bit healthier, and we'll definitely compete with them a little bit better there. And the Eagles, even showing up 60, 70, 80%, that wasn't even close to what they'll look like towards the end of the season, pulled out a victory, which is what championship teams generally tend to do. They don't let close wins get away.
Yeah. Um, Again, hats off to the Eagles and the defending champions. Also, when I'm wrong, I'll admit that I was wrong. I thought the Cowboys would get murdered, and they didn't. They looked good, man. They looked good. So who knows? There might be some hope for them, or it just might be the fact that it's week one, and for a lot of these teams, this was very much the preseason for them. As a lot of teams around the league have started to adapt a methodology during the preseason of not playing a bunch of starters. So it takes about a week or two for people to get going once the pads get clicking. But let's shift to Friday night football, man. Something that I don't know if my wife can actually take there being football on Friday nights.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and
And
Sunday,
Monday
and Monday.
too.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I don't know if wives across America are going to tolerate that. But I will say, um, the showdown between the Chargers and the Chiefs lived up to the billing. Um, both teams both teams look really, really good. I know there's some plays that each one of them would want back. Some things that I was a little bit surprised. I thought we'd see a lot more of Marion Hampton uh, from the Chargers, but Harbaugh really just kind of unleashed Justin Herbert and let him do his thing and get vertical. Shout out to what is it, Quentin Johnson,
Yeah, absolutely.
who seemed to have discovered his hands after we made so much fun of him not being relevant because he couldn't catch the ball. He came out and caught dang near everything that was thrown to him in an absolute shootout. Um, Patrick Mahomes was Patrick Mahomes. He made some plays, was able to roll out, and as the play broke down, you don't know how he finds these guys or how he manages to just barely get the ball off to him, whether it's a flick of the wrist, a little underhanded shovel pass. But they were scratching and clawing all night, man. Kind of like we talked about in our prediction show last week, man. The Kansas City doesn't look like the world beaters that they used to be. And I think they're very, very vulnerable. And I think that AFC West is going to be wide open for the taking.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And Justin Herbert had a game, man. He had 318 yards, three touchdowns, no turnovers. And again, games like this, historically, he has a turnover late. That really is the difference in the game. He kept control of the ball this game. Amari and Hampton, while if you look at his stats, 15 carries, 48 yards, it doesn't look phenomenal. He had tough runs, right? He was moving the chains. He got probably a third of those carries, I would say, were first downs, right? He was moving the chains, getting the ball, the clock rolling. But it was nobody really got the running game going, right? Both teams had less than 100 yards rushing. Like you touched on, Quentin Johnson had 80 yards, two touchdowns. Lad McConkey was doing his thing, slot machine, getting the ball moving, and Keelan Allen Looked like he was a little bit rusty, kind of getting back in there, but Justin Herbert started his career off for Keenan Allen, so they obviously had that familiarity, and they looked back to normal towards the end of the game. Couple key things I think for me on that game where we touched on it in our kind of season prediction show, but the Chiefs receiving game was a big thing. Like the lack of receiving threats, like Xavier Worthy dislocated his shoulder early. They said he missed the rest of that game at that point, but they said that he was going to try to put a brace on and play through that. I don't know how that's going to work out. You got to be able to reach up and do your mobility with the receiver. But he is fast. His legs will still work. So as long as he can pull in some catches for him, Juju Smith-Schuster looks like he's a depth piece at this point. You don't want to put him out there and say, hey, go move the chains. Hey, go make plays. Go give me a touchdown. Jason Kelsey, although he is, or not Jason Kelsey, Travis Kelsey, my bad. Jason Kelsey's in the booth and been retired, one of the best centers ever. But Travis Kelsey, he's been slowing down the last few years, but he always finds a way to get open. He was sitting down in zones. He's not going to beat you in man-to-man much, but he's sitting down in zones, got Patrick Mahomes' only touchdown, and Patrick Mahomes aired the ball out almost 40 times, had one touchdown and only 250 yards, right? So they're going to have to get something figured out in the interim that first 6 weeks, as well as with Xavier Worthy being out. If I was them, I'd be looking and see, what they can bring in. A highlight for them was Tyquan Thornton, the rookie from Tennessee. Big, physical, fast. He's about as fast as Xavier Worthy, a little bit slower, about a 4.31. But he's huge. He's like 6'3". He got a few breaks where he was open, just underran the ball, or the ball just outshot him. And I think as they build a little bit of continuity, that could be another good deep threat. But you still have to have receivers that can run routes, and that's a problem area for him right now. And then the last thing I'll say, because this game, I was hoping that both teams would lose, but obviously that's not possible. It was a very entertaining game, and it looks like Harbaugh's having a big effect on Justin Herbert, right? Like another year in that system, helping him close out games. Andy Reid had that team coached up and ready to compete, even though they missed a lot of pieces. And a big shout out to Josh Simmons, that question mark at left tackle. We were like, hey, how's he going to be? Yeah, he was one of the best tackles in the country in college. He got hurt, I think, after his 4th or 5th game and missed the rest of the season. But he came back and handled Khalil Mack pretty well. He kept up with that Chargers pass rush. And if they cannot worry about that side of the left side of that line for him, that's something Patrick Mahomes hasn't had really stability wise since he's been there, besides Orlando Brown. So I think that's going to be a huge piece for them going forward.
Yeah, man. Like I said, 2 great games to start the season off. If you're fans of any of those 4 teams, you were watching those games with your butt cheeks clenched for all four quarters, and was able to finally breathe that sigh of relief. Only at the very, very last seconds as the clock hit 0. But the close games didn't stop there, man. Obviously we're not going to touch on every game, but bro, what a Sunday we were treated to. I mean, from kickoff in the early morning to the Sunday night football game, which we'll talk about Sunday night football all by itself here in a second. But man, a lot of good games in the early window. One of the games that I want to talk about real quick, New York Jets and the Pittsburgh Steelers, which this time last year, that's a game that nobody wants to watch.
Right.
This year, wow, man. The New York Jets under new head coach Aaron Glenn look probably as good as I think I've ever seen the Jets in my lifetime, especially in a week 1 matchup. Now, I do think they have some stuff defensively that they need to work on, but it's not a lack of pieces. It's just a lack of familiarity and comfortability in the new system that Aaron Glenn has brought in. Justin Fields looked good, right? Like Justin Fields looked like a starting NFL quarterback. You got to be happy for the young man, right? Like he was, his career could have been DOA. And again, it's the first week, so I don't want to get too high or get too low on him, but I want to acknowledge the job that he did out there. Aaron Rodgers looks like, he's ready for one more ride. He's kind of back in his form. DK Metcalf looks at home in his new team. And I got to say, my heart breaks a little bit watching Jalen out there in the Steelers uniform. But man, did he not close the game out in the most Steelers fashion possible?
Made a huge play, man, a huge hit. You know, Jalen Ramsey's historically, since he's been in the league, one of the most physical corners, and that was not lacking today, right? He's not. He lost a step or two. He's still quick though. He's still smart, and he's absolutely as physical as he's ever been. He came in, they ran a post. He came up, cracked him at a timely manner, right? And that was like the difference in the game. And for me personally, I was expecting this game to be like a defensive battle, slug it out a little bit. Obviously, Aaron Glenn, Mike Tomlin, two defensive head coaches. Aaron Rodgers didn't play at all in the preseason, right? Justin Fields played a little bit, but he was dealing with an injury. So I was expecting them to start off a little bit slower. A lot of teams today, the overwhelming majority of the games today were less than touchdown games. I think there were two or three games that didn't follow that, so it was a really good close game. So I was thinking this was going to be a defensive battle. Turned out to be the complete opposite, right? The defenses started off a little bit slower. They made plays when it counted to come up and win, but very entertaining offenses. And if I was a Jets fan, man, like Steelers fans are already through the moon. If I was a Jets fan, I would say, hey, man, if this is the first game under this new culture, this is something we can look forward to, right? Justin Fields looked very competent today. 220 yards passing. He had about 50 yards rushing, right? Was making really accurate throws. He had a few drops by some receivers, but he was getting through his progressions. And I've been a Justin Fields believer for a long time. You said, hey, he went to Ohio State. He has to show me. And I think today was a good step in that direction for sure.
Yeah, man. If you're a New York Jets fan, I don't get me wrong, you're dying for a week one win, but you got to be really happy with what your team put on tape today. Like considering a new coaching regime, new quarterback, Elijah Vera Tucker losing out on the season. We just found that out last week, right? So they had to shuffle this offensive line at the last second. Like I thought they did really, really good against what historically has always been a really good defense. And it's not like the pass rush wasn't present. TJ Watt introduced himself to Justin Fields a couple times. Um, but like I said, both of those teams, I was thinking these are probably going to be middling teams. Wasn't really expecting a whole lot of offense out of them. So to see two defensive focused teams really get after it on offense, it's got to be encouraging if you're a fan of either one of those franchises.
Absolutely. So a game I want to touch on briefly, just because of some things that we were talking about, is like the Giants, right? Giants and the Commanders, right? That game was a little bit closer than that score would show you. But
For sure.
if I was a Giants fan, I'd be a little bit quick. Like the calls for Jackson Dart are going to come early, right? Like Russ didn't have a great game. He got sacked a couple times. Some of his throws were off target. I don't know what they have to do, but I definitely want to give a shout out. I know if somebody looks at a box score and they see a running back who Kim Scadaboo had 2 carries for -3 yards, right? But what he did phenomenal today, right, was his pass blocking was absolutely ridiculous. Like he saved Russell Wilson's life several times, at least 3 times that I remember. Russ got sacked twice. He could have easily got sacked 4 to 6 times if Scadaboo didn't step up and kind of take that on. I think that's going to be good for them, a good balance with Tyrone Tracy. And Malik Neighbors did his thing. He still has 71 yards his first game. It was just, Russ was kind of missing a few throws. And I will give a credit to that defense, right? Like they held Jalen Daniels relatively under control, considering again he had one touchdown. He had almost 300 yards between the air and on the ground.
Brian Burns
But
did a hell of a game.
but Brian, like they were after him, man. Like they made him really uncomfortable. His timing was off. He wasn't as efficient as he normally was. He made winning plays. And their running game looked really good. They rushed for over 200 yards today. I mean, that was really the difference in the game. But the Giants defense did give them trouble. That's a high flying offense. We saw them scoring, 30 plus points in the playoffs last year, right? So I think that was a very entertaining game. And if I was a Giants fan, I would just hope that they get the offense worked out. And I do think we'll see Jackson Dart later on in the year if the quarterback play continues the way it looked today.
Listen, I don't want to go into week 2 if I'm a Giants fan with Russell Wilson under center. Like, sorry, not sorry. Let me see Jackson Dart. Let me see Jackson Dart because I don't know how you're a fan of that team and you don't feel like you left a lot of points on the field today. That if you had halfway decent quarterback play, that you maybe come away with that win. If not, you'd probably draw within 3. You know what I mean?
100%.
Um, but hats off to the Commanders, man. They went against what we predicted was going to be a really nasty defense, and they showed out today. And because they didn't get any help from their offense, they just couldn't hold up for all 4 quarters. Um, but one of the things that I did think that was intriguing on the Commanders side of the thing was Debo Samuel looked like returned to form, right? Not a whole lot of pass catching, but man, they're running him in those gadget plays out in those sweeps and stuff, and he is a tough guy to tackle. He's not a person that you want to meet out there in the open space because he's either going to make you miss or he's going to make you look stupid. Um, so again, I don't know how sustainable that is. I think that was an interesting week 1 test for them. Obviously, the Commanders are happy to be on the side of that they are, right? It's a division game, so they got to feel happy about that. But yeah, interesting game. Like you said, the scoreboard wasn't reflective of how close that matchup actually was. Um, Another game that I wanted to touch on that I thought also incredible in the early window, Atlanta and Tampa.
We must be
Atlanta,
we must be right here. That's the
bro,
next game I have.
Atlanta and Tampa, bro. I was locked for this game. Michael Penix, Atlanta, y'all might got one.
They
Y'all
got
might
there's
really
no
got
there's no might. They got one.
y'all might got one. Uh, Bijan, however you want to say his name. He said not Bijan, it's Bijan. Bijan
Bajan.
Robinson, he got busy real quick and in a hurry.
100 yards receiving, bro.
Yeah, real quick and in a hurry. The defense for Atlanta looked really good. Don't get me wrong; they made a couple mistakes at times, and then other times it wasn't even that they made mistakes, man. Like hats off to Baker Mayfield in this particular, act of his career. Right, I'm officially calling it Act 2. Act 1 was the Browns, then there was an intermission in between. Now we're in Act 2. He's looked good, man. I think Baker Mayfield has finally matured and grown into a franchise quarterback, and that shows. And that guy has a never say die, you know, uh, mentality about him, and it doesn't matter what kind of punches Atlanta was throwing at them. He was answering. Got the young rookie Ibuka involved twice. Me as a fantasy owner, love to see that. But I think it's clear to see what direction that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are trending. Right, like the offense is going to start flowing through Ibuka. Mike Evans is probably going to be relegated to the 2. I know people don't want to hear that. Mike Evans is a 1. I'm not saying Mike Evans is a 2. I'm saying just because of age and probably the play calling, he's going to get relegated probably to a 2. They were without Chris Godwin in this one, but it didn't seem to matter. They got saved at the last second, drama. Young Wei Koo with probably one of the worst field goals that we've seen in opening week this week. And I know he's got to be kicking himself. He also had some hardship last year where he was missing some gimmies. And I hate this culture now in the NFL with these kickers, man, because the kickers have gotten better and better and better. You got guys that are making 60-yarders that look like they could line up and give you 70 yards. It just feels like you shouldn't be allowed to miss from under 50.
Yeah, it's that game was a phenomenal close, man, and I definitely want to give a shout out to the 2 rookies. One you touched on, Emeka Ibuka. I told you I think he was going to be a very underrated player. Like he looked like the number 1 receiver in the offense. When Chris Godwin gets back, it's going to be even another weapon. But for the Falcons, man, Jalen Walker, right, who they got from Georgia, that looked like a first round draft pick. Well spent. He didn't have any sacks today, but he pressured Baker Mayfield. He had 3 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss. He played very, very well today. James Pierce Jr. looks like he's still working himself into figuring that out as uh, that first round edge rusher for them. But if those 2 can come along, man, their defense is going to be phenomenal in the long run. And then and Michael Penix, man, looked like a winner, bro. Like he looked. That was honestly my favorite quarterback coming out last year. Last year's draft, the 24 draft or whatever it was. I'm not saying I think he would be the best quarterback in that draft, but he was my favorite quarterback in that draft because he played big games, balled out in big games, consistently did better. And I love left-handed quarterbacks, man. So like college football and real life, and he has an absolute cannon attached to his arm, man. So I think if you're a Falcons fan like my sister is, Yes, you're mad you lost to a division rival. The rivalries in the NFC South are, they're a real thing. But with
Mhm.
that being said, man, they competed. Younghoe Koo was a field goal away from it going into overtime, man. And Bucky Irvin still looks like a playmaker, man, for the Bucks. He still looks like a playmaker. He didn't have all the rush yards in the world, but he made some timely plays. And Baker is absolutely a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, man. Happy for them. Um, did you have another game that was close to you that you wanted to talk about? Something that was exciting, whether in the mid window or the early window?
A couple before I touch on the Broncos, because obviously we're going to touch on our teams, because of
Mhm.
course we're going to. But the Lions and the Packers, man, the Lions offense did not look like the normal Lions offense we've been used to. Obviously, losing two coordinators at the same time, we knew was going to impact that team, but they looked dismal, and I think they'll get it together just under that new play calling system. But Jared Goff threw the ball almost 40 times, had one touchdown, one interception, got sacked four times. And the thing that was really missing with Ben Johnson being on was the running game. This is a team
Yep.
that historically is going to run the ball. They had one of the best offensive lines. That didn't change with the play caller, but the scheme didn't look phenomenal today. They only had 46 yards rushing today. And I think that was a huge difference to them being one of the only games that wasn't within a touchdown. They got beat pretty well. But with that being said, Jordan Love was very efficient. Josh Jacobs got some tough yards. Romeo Dobbs actually led the Packers in receiving. Like I don't know that competition with Matthew Golden and stuff. Matthew Golden had a very quiet day, but Micah did get his welcome to the Packers sack against Jared Goff today. Their defense looked very dominant. Like that's a defense that gave up one touchdown, two field goals. They look phenomenal. Like they're going to be competing for the class of the NFC this year. So I'm definitely excited to watch how that turns out. But that game, man, I was just curious to see how that would be because, again, division rivals, a team that won 15 games last year, another team that won 12 games or 11 games last year, had a not healthy quarterback in Jordan Love last year, how he would look coming back, and how the Lions would look missing their coordinators. Their defense played relatively well considering, but their offense looked like it has a long way to go still. And I think not playing in the preseason does have a big effect on that. And I would encourage more teams to play their starters in the preseason. But yeah, man, that was a game that I thought was very entertaining, and we'll have to see how the Lions kind of develop as the season goes on.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of the offseason and speculation, right? Is now that Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are gone from Detroit, does Detroit return to what Detroit was? Now, I don't think that that's what's going to happen, but I am going to push back against those people that really think that Detroit is still going to be a playoff team. That doesn't mean that I think Detroit's going to win 3 games this year. I think they're going to win quite a few games because I think they're just too talented not to. Um, but I think Green Bay is going to be a real thing this year, and we'll find out tomorrow. I won't say find out. We'll get a better idea of what the Bears and the Vikings are going to look like going into the season. That Micah Parsons sack, bro. I saw something on Twitter where it said that clip looks like when the cheetah chases down a gazelle,
100%.
and that play was the definition of relentless. He starts on the opposite side of the field, on the weak side. Jared Goff is rolling to his right, to the strong side, and booting out. Has no idea he's absolutely being hunted from the backside, and Micah just pounces on him. You got to feel really good if you're Micah Parsons, right? Like you wanted to come out, you wanted to showcase, hey, this is the reason that you guys brought me here. This is why you guys gave up the compensation that you gave up, and it's paying dividends early. Like you said, Jordan Love looked like the better quarterback. He looked really comfortable all day. Um, Romeo Dobbs leading them in receiving was a bit of a surprise for me.
Absolutely.
Not because Romeo Dobbs is a bad receiver or anything, but I just thought the chemistry that we had seen, Jordan
Matthew
Love
Golden.
and Matthew Golden do, I thought we'd see some more. But you know what? To Love's credit, hey, he's throwing to the open man. Okay, throwing to the open man. That's typically a very, very good idea when you're playing the game of football. Another game that I wanted to spin it to real quick because this also goes with some of the stuff that we were talking about in the preseason. The Miami Dolphins look like the worst team in football, and
They
we said that before, and it's almost like they watched the show and they're like, you know what, we want to make Super Mike look like geniuses. And
I don't know if it was the fact that it was the Jim Irsay, honoring him going to the Ring of Fame. Peyton Manning came back. The crowd was hyped up. The team was really feeling it, right? I don't know if it was just that or if the Dolphins are more dysfunctional than we thought. But like Tua hasn't looked this bad, man, in the NFL, right? And again, it's only one game, so we'll see what happens. But their offensive line, he was completely under pressure. They couldn't get the running game going. It just, man, their offensive line showed up in a way. Their offensive line showed why they need to invest more picks in their offensive line. Liam Eichenberg, I understand that draft pick, right? But they needed to invest in way more pieces than just one, right? Like their offensive line might be, and again, I don't want to hate on the Colts because again they have Lou Anarumo running that defense. They have pieces. They have DeForest Buckner. They have a lot of other pieces in that defense. So that is a good defense. It's not like they're rollovers, but they made Daniel Jones look like Peyton Manning, right? Peyton Manning was there. Daniel Jones was looking like Peyton Manning that had wheels, right? Like he definitely rushed for a few yards. I'm trying to pull it up right now. He had 26 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, a touchdown in the air, almost 300 yards passing. Man, like Daniel Jones was out of his mind today. He was comfortable in the pocket behind the line. He got sacked one time, and it was kind of a missed blocking assignment. It looked like, but if the Colts are playing like that, man, they're going to be shocking some teams in that division. But we don't know, right? Yeah. Are the Dolphins that bad? Was it just one game, or are the Colts really that good? And I think the season will kind of tell us. But Tua did not look good at all today, man. He was 14 of 23, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, got sacked 3 times, but he did escape relatively healthy considering, so that's a good thing at least.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Miami Dolphins today look like you're playing Madden and the dog got a hold of the controller and you were trying to wrestle it back from them. Just botched everything that could go wrong for them did go wrong. I mean, that performance was truly a comedy of errors. And like I was telling you earlier, man, this isn't something that you can go back and like, oh, let's go watch the tape, try to pull out some positives. I don't think there was a single positive thing that happened for the Miami Dolphins. I don't think that you can look at that tape if you're a Miami Dolphins player and say, oh, we did this particular thing well. Because the only thing that I saw them doing well was getting their stuff pushed in. Like, that was really it. Yeah, dude, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, if you're a Dolphins fan, our brother Doug, like, just strap in. It's going to be a long one. It's going to be a long one for y'all boys.
And they have the Patriots next, followed by the Bills and the Jets. And if those teams continue to play how they looked, all those teams seem to have some kind of defenses, and the Dolphins look like they're struggling with their offensive line. So, man, this could be a real rough season for them. The Dolphins have a pretty difficult schedule, man.
Listen, I think that if this continues, Mike McDaniels will be the first head coach that gets fired this season.
I agree, and I'd hate to see that. He's a phenomenal play caller. He seems to have it figured out, head coaching. But man, like they're missing some pieces, and their GM absolutely needs to get fired. Right? There's pieces that they should have had. Mm-hmm. But man, if you're a Dolphins fan, you hope that this was just an off game. That the Colts were super inspired. They had some of that, MJ's magic juice from Space Jam or something like that because of the Jim Irsay honoring him, man. But they looked dominant, the Colts did, and the Dolphins looked as bad or worse as me and you predicted.
Yeah, I just, again, bro, I don't want Mike McDaniels. Like, don't get it twisted. I don't want Mike McDaniels to get fired for selfish reasons, obviously.
Because he'll be back in the 40s.
Because he'll be back in San Francisco, and I don't want to have to deal with him and Talala and freaking Shanahan together again. Let's not do a Brady Bunch family reunion here. So Miami, I need you to play better. Okay. I don't believe in you. I just need you to play better. Another game that I wanted to touch on, and I know you're too excited to talk about this game, or maybe you're not excited to talk about this game, but we're going to show love to the number 1 overall draft pick because he deserves to have love shown to him. Tennessee Titans, Denver Broncos.
Yeah, man, that game was way more stressful than it should have been, right? Something I will say is Cam Ward knows that playbook, man. Like he got sacked 6 times, could have easily been 10. Moore was a turnstile. They signed him from Pittsburgh, and he was having pass blocking issues in Pittsburgh, and he was having those same pass blocking issues today. Tony Pollard looked good in the first half, right? The team looked really good in the first half. Cam Ward was third and long. Nick Bonito was rushing him, got wrapped around him. Cam Ward just threw a pass to the side. Tony Pollard turned that into like a 15-yard gain or no, a 29-yard
yards.
29-yard gain. My bad. I don't want to like jip him with the yards, but then the defense turned it around and the Titans had -3 yards after that first half, right? Like so the defense turned around, played well, and having that defense was very exciting, and that was the key to the game because Bo Nix had he only had I want to say like 9 turnovers last year. He hasn't had a fumble since his time at Auburn, and he had 2 interceptions and a fumble today. He took a few chances that I think were absolutely unnecessary. Cortland Sutton went out there and dominated, man. Troy Franklin, he looked much improved over last year. Evan Ingram, we only targeted him 4 times. He ended up leaving the game early with an ankle injury. But the talking point in that today was, 6 sacks for that defense. Marvin Mims still returning kicks, got us in position to close that game out. And Talua Hufanga was an absolute dog today, man. Had 10 tackles, a forced fumble. That was a timely forced fumble, and that was one of the keys. That's one of the game. It was only 20-12, and I like an old school defensive game. I don't mind watching defensive game. It could be 9-6, and I'll be happy watching that. But the turnovers, we'll have to see how Bo Nix, rectifies that with Sean Payton this week. But Ken Ward, man, his line betrayed him. His line really betrayed him. He made some plays. They had 3 holding calls and a legal man downfield. I want to say when he made some plays. So I think if I'm a Titans fan, Brian Callahan's play calling was absolutely phenomenal. Their line overall looked very good in that first half, like especially their running. Especially having the best offensive line coach in the NFL, Brian Callahan's dad. So I don't know, man. I think that was a good game. It stressed me out a little bit, and hopefully we clean it up. And then, Titans, their line, man, they do need a few more pieces probably in there to get Cam Ward where he needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about Cam Ward for a minute. Again, the Titans don't win this game, but this is probably the first time in a while that I could say the Titans have a franchise quarterback. Like, yeah, Cam Ward looks the part. Again, it's one game, but he very much looks the part. You think as the season continues to go and they continue to stack blocks, right, that they do get a few of those things ironed out. This is a team that I expect to be pretty aggressive at the trade deadline, probably going to be shopping people's practice squads for offensive linemen and stuff like that, because you got to protect your franchise investment at the quarterback position. I didn't think that they had enough weapons, but after today, I was like, no, I think if Cam isn't running for his absolute life, I think they have enough on there to get it done. And let's give credit to where credit is due. Denver is no slouch on defense. They're one of the better defenses in the league. I think you could probably put Denver within the top 10 defenses in the league. They're probably closer to
top 3.
they're definitely in that range. So this was a real test for them. If you're Sean Payton, you're scratching your head a little bit today. You're glad that you got the win, but you're scratching your head a little bit because you're trying to figure out what version of Bo Nix are you getting this year? Are you getting the Auburn version or are you getting the Oregon version that you had last year? Because the last thing that Denver needs is for Bo Nix to revert back to his Auburn form. That would be tragic, especially since there's so much good press about Bo Nix in the offseason. I know you and I have talked about Bo Nix and how I think, hey, he could really be the quarterback in this second-year class to really take the leap. Today, he was determined to make you and I look like idiots. Did not play a good game at all. But again, Cam Ward, number 1 draft pick. I think he looked good. You would have loved to see a win if you're a Titans fan, but I don't think there's a whole lot there to be worried about other than, hey, sometimes the talent just doesn't match up, bro. Like, sometimes the talent just doesn't match up. I know it's the NFL, but that's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
Last game, Is it not? It's not even the last game that I want to talk about.
Second to last game.
Second to last game. But I'm going to save. I'm going to save him. I'm going to save him. Game I actually want to talk about. I want to talk about San Francisco 49ers Seattle Seahawks.
I mean, the benefit of that game, I think, was Christian McCaffrey getting some plays right. Like
Yep.
they announced about 11 o'clock-ish today or 10 o'clock-ish, I think, my time today, that he was going to be playing, and he got 22 carries. Man, he touched the ball over 30 times. He had his normal Christian McCaffrey workload, and he was the reason they won that game, right? He was absolutely the reason they won that game. It was only a 4-point game, but Brock Purdy had 2 turnovers. He looked very good early. Besides those 2 turnovers, he only got sacked 1 time, but he did have 2 touchdowns. And he was decisive getting the ball. Ricky Pearsall looked like he made a huge jump from last year, which they need him to, being down a few receivers for a while, Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings. And once they get him back, and once they get those receiving threats back, man, their offense, I think, could be very dangerous, especially if Christian McCaffrey, plays the way that we know he can. And Seattle, man, like Sam Darnold kind of looked like Sam Darnold pre-Minnesota today. I think he looked pre-Minnesota Sam Darnold. Their running game was atrocious. They only had 84 yards rushing. But Jackson Smith and Jigba absolutely went crazy. You think about this, right? Sam Darnold had 150 yards passing. Jackson and Jigba had 124 yards receiving, right? So it was he was really the lifeline for him, and they're going to need more people to show up. Cooper Kupp got targeted 3 times, had 2 catches, but only 15 yards, so they're going to have to build that chemistry. But that was a good defensive battle, and we're going to have to see if Seattle can take the next step with their offense. That was kind of a question mark for them last year, and it doesn't look to be much better this year.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell Robert Saleh is back in San Francisco because how many times did we see San Francisco get in these kind of games last year and the defense not be able to close? And I think that was the biggest difference today, is that the San Francisco 49ers defense got stout when they needed to. Nick Bosa got in there, made a play that eventually sealed the game. And like you said, Sam Darnold pretty much looked like Sam Darnold as we've grown to know him. I want to give a shout out to Mike McDonald because I think Seattle's defense looks like the real deal. Their secondary is probably one of the better secondaries out there. Not a lot of names that probably people know. Shout out to Ernest Jones with a heck of a grab for an interior linebacker over the middle. But the thing that I wasn't really expecting from the Seahawks that I did see today, they got themselves a bit of a pass rush going today. And I don't know if that's, outside of left tackle and Trent Williams, that the 49ers line maybe isn't that good. But yeah, hats off to Mike McDonald and the Seattle Seahawks over there, man. Like, they got a real defense over there. It remains to be seen how long that defense will hold up, because you're going to need to be able to partner that with some kind of offense. You're going to need a lot more balance than what you had today, because it's not getting easier from here. The Seahawks have a pretty stacked out schedule, and it's going to be a competitive division. If today's games were any indication of what the NFC West is going to look like it's going to be dogfights for all of those matchups. So they might want to get ready as well.
Absolutely.
All right, now it's time. I've been holding it off. Rams, Texans. We're not just talking about it because it's my team. We're talking about it because I thought it was actually one of the better matchups of the day as well. A defensive battle, and a game that had quite a few questions around it. Like, hey, is Matt Stafford going to be able to take a hit? Because it wasn't about if Matt Stafford gets hit. It was about when he got hit. The Texans defense is too talented and too good. How was Devontae Adams going to look going up against Derek Stingley and this vaunted secondary for the Houston Texans? CJ Stroud, even though he's had a sophomore slump, what would he come out and look like? Big questions around the offensive line for both teams, right? Where you had Alaric Jackson, who had missed a good majority of the preseason due to a blood clot issue, comes back with only a week to prepare for actual live action, and looked really, really good today. And then on the other hand, you had the Texans shuffling around their offensive line, even in warmups, trying to figure out what the right combination of players is going to be. Um, Things that I thought were concerns for both teams. Big concern for the Rams is they still have it's an inability to start quick. This has been something that has plagued the Rams for the last 2 seasons, is that they have not been able to come out and generate, touchdowns and points early. And it seems like it takes them a second to get warmed up. Now, granted, again, the Rams and the Texans, they're both teams that don't play a lot of starters during the preseason. So this is really kind of like preseason for most of the starters. Um, but still, like, and then Devontae Adams, man, watching him, like, Devontae is very much Devontae, but you can definitely tell that not having Matthew Stafford being able to practice in some of those walkthroughs and those live drills that they were doing, some of those practices with the other teams, things of that nature, you could tell that they weren't exactly on the same page, that they were missing stuff just seconds by each other. That is something that'll only get better. I mean, they made the throws and they made the plays that when they needed to. Puka Nacua, man, like Puka Nacua is an absolute dog. For me, hey, call me a homer. I have him in the top 10 receivers in the NFL right now. Like, I
I,
really do.
I
I
think he's
really
making
do.
it. I think he's definitely making a case for that. And I was gonna say Puka was one of the only players that didn't look like it was look like he balled out in the preseason, right? He looked like he was doing everything he needed to do in the preseason. 13 catches for 130 yards or 10 catches for 130 yards. Um, the thing that I would be concerned about, again, these are two great defensive teams. Honestly, they're two good defensive teams. The thing I would be worried about if I was a fan is the number of times the quarterbacks got hit. CJ Stroud got hit 6 times. Matt Stafford got hit 7 times.
Yep.
And I think that's going to be a thing. Matt Stafford came back, and I wasn't as worried when they kind of talked about the plan. I don't think people were listening to Sean McVay. I think there was a little bit of unnecessary worry. He said if Matt Stafford had to play a game, he would have been able to play, but it was the preseason, right? And you have a almost 40-year-old quarterback. Like, let this man heal up a little bit. They don't have there's a lot of work once the season starts, and him being able to rest and heal up a little bit more in the preseason. You absolutely were able to see that today. The timing will get there with Devontae Adams. The timing still was there with Puka Nacua. But I think the offensive line is something that both teams are going to have to see. And then, like, again, CJ Stroud had a phenomenal rookie year. And we're gonna have to see some progression this year. He had a good connection with Jaden Higgins. They're one of the rookie receivers they had from Iowa State. They looked okay today, had a couple passes, but their offense did look pretty out of sync most of the game. And I'm curious if that was because the Rams defense, the limited action in the preseason, or if he's just kind of stuck in a little bit of a rut, not making the progression he needs to make. So I'm definitely curious to see what happens later on. But it was a phenomenal defensive game, and Matt Stafford is still Matt Stafford.
Yeah, man. I want to give some credit to CJ. This is his what? CJ's what, third year?
Third year, yeah.
Third year, and he's in his second offense. So they had a new offensive coordinator this year, to kind of switch stuff up. But something that I saw from CJ today, they let him use his legs a little bit, and that was something that I thought last year, because of how poor the offensive line play was. He didn't really get a chance to step up and move around and make stuff off schedule. He used his legs just to stay alive and stay up. But he did have an offensive line today that held up against a really, really aggressive front. And he was able to generate, a couple off schedule plays and move the chains with his legs a little bit. And I think that's something that they need to let CJ do a lot more of. Just because the league is shifting to, a more mobile dual threat quarterbacks and stuff like that. So if you have a quarterback that changes the math with his legs, you have to let him go out there and be who he is. And we know that CJ Stroud is a hell of an athlete, hell of a quarterback. So it was good to see him kind of return to form, more of what we saw from him in his first year, right, in his freshman year with the Texans. Something else that I'll say is you can tell they missed Tank Dell.
100%.
They missed Tank Dell. It was really Nico Collins out there. I was a little bit confused with Nick Chubb, bro. Like, don't get me, and this is not a Nick Chubb like a hate session, I think Nick Chubb actually looked really good. I think Nick Chubb looked healthy. What I was confused of is when the game was on the line, they started leaning on Nick Chubb and he was moving the chains 4 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards. And then all of a sudden they just take him out the game. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just ride him all the way to the end? Like,
yeah. And I think, part of it was being cautious coming back from that knee injury a few years ago. It takes a few years to really come back from that. Last year was, the end of the year was really when he started to come back from that. So maybe they wanted to kind of, hammer that out a little bit. And, obviously Joe Mixon's hurt for them, so you don't want to have the top two running backs, but you're top two running backs out. But you're 100% right, man. Like Nick Chubb is a dog. He's one of those backs that is kind of ageless. He's going to be physical. His style's built on physicality, not built on speed, and he was absolutely doing that today. And I think if they could lead into that a little bit more as the season progresses, that'll help them set up their passing game a little bit more. It'll take some pressure off the offensive line as far as pass blocking. So that's a good point to make, and I do think that they'll make some decent strides throughout this season. I'm a big fan of the receivers they do have. They're younger receivers. Obviously, they are missing Tangdale, but they do have some younger receivers in Higgins and Noel that I think will be beasts by the time the end of this year's up.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to both offensive lines holding up against really, really aggressive rush fronts. You have two back-to-back defensive rookies of the year playing on each side of the ball. Also, big shout out to Nate Landman. He has been practicing that peanut punch all off season. And it's always really, really cool when you see the stuff that translates, the good stuff, right? That from the preseason, from training camp and the workouts, when you see that translate to game day, single-handedly kind of saved the day for the Rams, for an offense that still struggled to go. So I'm happy for the rest of the week. I can hang my head high and go about my business tomorrow and not hating life. But I want to spin it to what I honestly thought was the game of the day, and Sunday night football, Ravens, Bills. The Ravens come out early and look dominant, and Lamar looked comfortable. And the things that Lamar does with his legs, I think we haven't really seen a Houdini act like that in the NFL. Yeah, it was cool to see D-Hop back out there again, and he made a hell of a grab for a touchdown. Derrick Henry still very much Derrick Henry, right? Like he looks like he wants another 2,000 yards this season. Aside from the fumble, looked really, really good tonight. Story of the game for me is the defense for the Ravens absolutely selling in the fourth quarter. And not even the fourth quarter, the last 5 minutes of the game, Josh Allen has this thing that he does where he puts on this Superman cape and he's just unstoppable. Also, shout out to Keon Coleman, man. You could tell that he worked a lot in the offseason to be able to make that leap. And he made so many heads up plays, big time plays that gave the Bills a chance to get back into this game. Can't talk enough about his leap from year 1 to 2. But Josh Allen, again, puts on the cape and gets the Bills back within a field goal. And they're able to kick it and win the game, winning 41-40 after being down 40-25 with 5 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. Insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on one of the biggest things I was going to touch on. I think the story of the game, in my opinion, is the Ravens hopped out to a good lead. And traditionally in the playoffs, they've had some meltdowns at bad times, and today looked just like that, right? Lamar Jackson was absolutely balling towards the beginning of the game. Derrick Henry still Derrick Henry. But the leap that Keon Coleman made was the most obvious, right? Because he's a physical receiver. His route running is good, but last year it just looked good. Today he was able to create some good separations. His hands are really strong. 8 catches, 112 or 113 yards and a touchdown. Looked absolutely phenomenal. But it was really interesting seeing the Ravens defense. Like literally, it looked like like if you're playing Madden or college football or something, and the computer's just on that bull, and they just start doing whatever they want to. It's 30, 20, you can't stop them. That's literally what the defense looked like, man. And they have some work to do. Like they have some continuity. It looks like they need to build that continuity rather for that defense. Absolutely
Jair
exciting.
Alexander was absolutely getting eaten
Just
alive.
buns today, bro. He was
Yeah,
straight like it. He looked. I don't know. For one, those shoulder pads is probably the problem. Those shoulder pads look way too big.
look way
They
too
look,
big
they
for
look
him.
way too big for
Yeah,
him. I didn't even have the right ones on him. But and Wiggins played really well.
yeah.
Opposite him. But Jair Alexander was getting picked on. Man, he was losing a lot today. So maybe the Packers were on to something with letting him leave the building. But that's something that they're going to have to get shored up if they're going to be in games. But I honestly think if they play like they played today against 90% of the teams in the NFL, they would have walked away with a W, right? But you can't play like that against the Bills and expect to win when you got Josh Allen as the MVP. And he looks like he's competing for that MVP again this year. And you could just see Lamar Jackson's face as that game was slipping away. And it wasn't really because of them. It wasn't because of the offense, right? He had 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 70 yards rushing a touchdown. He did Lamar Jackson things, but the defense just absolutely collapsed. I don't know what the hell they were doing or thinking at the end of the game, but they really let their team down.
Well, at that point, Mike, like I mean, listen, nobody's going to get Harbaugh fired today, and I'm not calling for Harbaugh to be fired, but at a certain point, like this has to be on coaching. Like part of this has to be on coaching. Um, And it seemed like this game is kind of what a microcosm of the Lamar Jackson Ravens has been, right? Where they get out to a really big start uh, early in the season, things are good. And then when it's crunch time, it's like whatever was working for them, they take that game plan and they just throw it in the trash. And they said, okay, let's absolutely sell right now. And I just I don't know if I'm ready to watch another season of the Ravens dominate dang near everybody else and then get to the playoffs and forget how to play football, because that's really what the fourth quarter looked like. And to me, that's on your coach. That's on your head coach. You're not getting these guys to close out a game. That's the job.
That's, I mean,
That's the
I,
job.
I do agree with the coaching point, but I'm going to show some of that blame as well to their defensive coordinator, right? Zach Orr called a pretty decent game early on to hold Josh Allen in check a little bit, but he absolutely erupted. He almost had 400 yards, and a lot of that was in the fourth quarter. He kind of went absolutely berserk, right? The last 5 minutes, really, he went berserk. He was making plays, and both the lines played well. They only gave up 3 quarterback hits, each. But I don't know what it was, man. You literally could watch the team and see them deflating defensively. I don't know if they were tired. I don't know what exactly it was, but the team just looked like they knew they couldn't stop Josh Allen, and they couldn't, right? So it's coaching that they're gonna have some film to watch. I'm not calling for Harbaugh to get fired. I
Yeah,
know some.
nobody is.
I can't say nobody. Ravens fans have been calling for that man to get fired for like the last 3 years, and I'm like, who are you guys going to get that's better, right? But saying that to say, man, I think it's going to be a phenomenal year. I was not expecting an 81 points getting thrown up, right? Like they put together a Kobe game, realistically, right? But it was a very, very entertaining game, and there were some plays that were being made, man. And I'm just curious to see what fixes are going to happen for the Ravens, right? That's a big thing, and then how the Bills can get out to a quicker start, right, against some of these teams. And they both have some tests coming up, right? The Ravens have the Browns next week, right? Their defense, that's always a defensive battle. And the Bills have the Jets coming up, followed by the Bills don't really have a test for a little bit, right? They got the Jets, Dolphins, and the Saints, but they had to focus on getting better starts at the beginning of the year, and learning how to win games and be in the lead and really run the ball better, right? They didn't have a good running day today, and you got to be able to run the ball to kind of hold on and close out a victory. So
Yeah, like I said, both of those are going to be divisional matchups, so they mean a little bit more. There's a little extra spice there on those matchups. Both of those matchups coming up are going to be really, really interesting, with like Cleveland getting Quashon Judkins, right?
yeah,
The
Quashon
running back.
Dawkins back.
Yeah, he's officially under contract. We'll
He
see if
signed. I want to say it was what, Thursday, Friday, something like
Yep.
that.
So we'll see if he gets some play time and see if that changes the math a little bit. And then, like I said, with the Jets are ascending, and I think part of the test for the Bills, when you're talking about, if you just look at the strength of schedule right for that next run of games, you would say, Bills, Bills, Bills. But I think difference between a good team and a championship caliber team is championship caliber teams beat the teams that they're supposed to beat.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think these next 3 weeks for the Bills are going to be absolutely telling, and they're going to let us know what kind of team they're going to be this year. They'll inevitably, right? They're probably going to be one of the teams that are hanging around at the end of the season that's playing into January. That's what I fully expect of both of these teams. I expect to be around come January. But man, what an opening Sunday! If you told me this was the kind of Sunday that we are going to get for the rest of the season, this is what all of our primetime fixtures are going to look like. Like my heart is full. I can't take anymore. Actually, I can't. I need tomorrow's fixture to be just as good as that. So before we get up out of here, Mike, I wanted to talk real quick. Let's talk Vikings. Let's talk Bears. What are your expectations for Monday Night Football?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a real competitive game. I think it'll be a little more competitive than people probably anticipate. And I'm really anxious to see what McCarthy looks like, JJ McCarthy looks like under that Kevin O'Connell system. Kevin O'Connell is a phenomenal coach. I think he could have me and you looking phenomenal, right? Playing under that system. He has everybody looking dominant. And I've never played quarterback in my entire life, but I think I'm interested to see how they are, how their defense gels together with the new pieces that they have, and if Caleb Williams can kind of take a leap and as well as how that offensive line being rebuilt in the offseason, they made some important moves. So how that line gels and how quickly they gel, and if they're going to be able to impose their will on a defense that has some guys on that defensive line, especially at that defensive tackle position. So I'm anticipating the Vikings to eke out a close game. I'm anticipating like a 24-17 type game or 20-24-21 type game. But I think it'll be close, and I think it's going to be on those quarterbacks to win the game, right? As well as making sure they're not losing the game by unnecessary plays, unnecessary turnovers. So trust the playmakers you have. They both have weapons. Obviously, JJ McCarthy's missing a few weapons right now, but they both have weapons. They're both loaded. They both have great play callers. So I'm definitely excited to see what that game's going to look like and how that division is going to shape up.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really good test for Ben Johnson and his staff and his players. They're going against Brian Flores, who I think is one of the better defensive coordinators in the league and has
Absolutely
demonstrated such. And I mean, listen, there's no secrets here, right? Like these guys know each other very well. Ben Johnson is very familiar with Brian Flores and what he brings to the table in that division. Now that he gets to run the show, right, and he has his own personnel and things of that nature, we'll get to see what does an actual Ben Johnson team look like without a Dan Campbell mentality. Let's see if the Chicago Bears have some bite, right? Maybe they're not biting kneecaps, maybe they're biting ankles. We don't know what's going on in Chicago, but it should be a good one. Things for me to watch is I wonder how Justin Jefferson is going to play because he's been there since the soft tissue injuries.
right.
And those things tend to linger forever and ever. Like you said, J.J. McCarthy, we talked a lot in the offseason. You know exactly how I feel about J.J. McCarthy. Is he going to be shell-shocked? And are the spotlights going to be too big for him, right? Because this is his first game as the starter in the NFL, and it's on Monday Night Football. Like this is a primetime match against a division rival, somebody who, this game, you hate to say it, but honestly, as early as it is, the outcome of this game could have some real consequences come December. So it's not like this is one that we can afford to lose. Any kind of these divisional matchups, you really can't afford to lose them. But like you said, Kevin O'Connell, he's a quarterback whisperer. Expect them to get the most out of J.J. McCarthy. I'm expecting to dial up a few things. They did sign Carson Wentz, so push come to shove, I guess you could toss him out there. I don't know if that's the best thing to do, but it is an option. Either way, I think that we're in for another good one tomorrow night. I'm just excited that the season's here, bro.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm fired up for this season, and I did want to make sure we're doing a little quick segment that we talked about outside the pocket. Right, my out the pocket moment this week was Jalen Carter hawking a loogie on Dak Prescott. I mean, man, like that could have absolutely cost this team the game. I think that was the most obvious one. There was another gentleman this week that slapped the quarterback, but it was an open fist. He knew the rules, right? So he took his glove off, open fist, 50-yard penalty. but then he ended up making a play later on, blocking a pass when it came off. He knocked it down. It kind of made up for that. But that hawking a loogie on another man, I think if the offensive line of I think if it wasn't Jalen Carter, offensive line probably would have beat him down. But that's a pretty big guy to have to get after it with. But that could absolutely cost the team the game, and we haven't seen what consequences are going to come up besides the fine. He might miss a game or two as a result of that as well.
Yeah, they're talking a possible 3-game suspension for that. So yeah, that was out of pocket. Like to get suspended before to get ejected before the game even starts, like it is an absolute out of pocket moment. I'm trying to think what kind of out of pocket moments did we have. I'll tell you what I think is pretty out of pocket, and who knows, it might prove to be smart down the road. But I think out of pocket paying Jameson Williams $83 million when he has 2 years left on his deal. And to be fair, he's been good, but he hasn't really shown anything. And if anything, right, like he got disciplined in 2 seasons back to back for violations of the league rules. And he had one complete season, which I think was last year, and he played well. But man, if that's the precedent that we're setting, I think that's out of pocket. But who knows, right? Maybe he goes nuclear this year, and that turns out to be the best move that Detroit's made in a long time, right? That way they make sure that they've got both of their pass catchers and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams locked up. Jared Goff is locked up, knowing that they got to pay Aiden Hutchinson this year. So who knows? But I find it completely out of pocket for a player that hasn't produced at the level that I think deserves a secondary contract. And for it to have 2 years remaining on his deal, I think is way out of pocket.
Yeah, they're definitely anticipating something big from that man. So,
yeah. Again, we appreciate you guys tuning in the pocket. Thank you guys for rocking with us. It's a late night for both of us, but we're happy to sit here and talk football for you guys. In the Pocket podcast happens every single Monday right here on YouTube. So please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Also, toggle that notification bell so that way you get alerted whenever the new episodes drop. We've got more coming for you. This is a good day for me and Mike. We're happy and smiling today, but who knows, man? Maybe next Monday we'll both be real sad puppies. I hope not, because I've got Super Bowl aspirations. I hope Sean McVay and the Rams have the same. But until next week, from me and Mike, appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Catch you next time.